neural systemic kinesiology. So I read you the questions and you give me your answer. What would come into mind when you have questions? So, first question: for what reason do you have been interested in kinesiology?
Or how I got interested in kinesiology?
Yeah.
Okay. It started when before I got into kinesiology, I was living in India for 3 years. Yeah. And just living in ashrams, studying Eastern philosophy with Indian or Hindu people, and also with Tibetan, in Tibetan monasteries and stuff in Nepal. And when I was in an ashram, a person came into my room towards the end of the time I was in India, and he was a chiropractor doing some applied kinesiology. And so I used to watch him test muscles and use go like this with the finger modes, and he had a bag of flower essences, and I used to watch him, and he did a little bit on me, you know. I wasn't actually that interested in it. Then when I was travelling up in the north of India just before I came home, it's like this inspiration or this voice came into my head, or just this, you know, knowingness came into me as like, do kinesiology. And so I just thought, because I was about to go back to Australia, I thought, I'm going to do kinesiology. All right. That's how I got interested in it. And when I got back, I did a couple of courses and then I met Charles Krebs, and he was involved with a 2-year diploma in a college in Melbourne, Australia. And so I met Charles, and I thought, this is where I'm going to study.
When? 19?
I met him in 95. I got back from India early 95, around March. And I did a few just short courses throughout the year, you know, like Touch for Health and Kinergetics. Yeah. And so then I enrolled in the program, and that started in February 1996. And that went for 2 years, and I graduated at the end of 1997.
So, and you remember the name of the chiropractic person who did this first?
Yeah, his name was Michael Powderly. He's from Australia. Okay. And funnily, interestingly enough, I know him now. He lives in the same town as me.
It's crazy.
And actually his kids go to the same school as mine do. And they're the same age. Okay. And actually I knew his wife before they got together. So it was just
funny synergistic effect.
Yeah, it was fun.
Okay. So what have you done before?
Well, before that I was living in India for 3 years, as I mentioned. Also, before that I had a business in the clothing industry. It was like, but then it sort of was like a boom and bust. It was a big fad for 3 years, and then it just went out of fashion, and when it all collapsed, I just took whatever money I had left over and went to India. So that I did for about 3 or 4 years, and before that I spent some time in South America. Like my father's from Ecuador in South America, and I was studying engineering, civil engineering.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how long do you work with kinesiological methods? You told this already, but this is my first question.
Okay, well I started with kinesiology in 1995, when I came back from India, Touch for Health, Kinergetics, and then in the college I learned the main thing, or the main influence on me was applied physiology. Yeah. And I met Richard Utt in that time. And then when I graduated I just started coming up with ideas. One thing led to another, and here I am.
Mm-hmm. So what especially is it what fascinates you concerning kinesiology?
What fascinates me about kinesiology is that it works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What fascinates me is that you can have some ideas. You know, anyone can have ideas and say, well, this is going to balance this or that.
Yeah.
But the thing is that when you look at kinesiology and the effect that it has on people's lives, and how deeply you can change the way people live, the benefit that's brought to people all around the world. And for me, I mean, the biggest thrill I get is when I come back somewhere and someone I've taught a technique to comes and tells me, oh, I use this technique on a client and it's completely changed their life. And that, you know, there's no better reward than that for me.
Okay. So 5. How did you develop your very own system, neural system, kinesiology?
Okay. Well, this is an interesting story because when I was a student, you know, I really I was taught all of applied physiology by Charles, or most of it, and you know, just once when he was teaching us the basic agape quest, he showed one technique where you have to find the position, the muscle position, and he said, oh, you know, it's the right position if you touch the reference meridian, and it gives the indicator muscle gives a change. And so immediately I thought, well, why wouldn't you just pause like the reference meridian and then move the muscle and then test where you've got the change, you're in the right position. And it just went out of my head. And at the end of the 2 years, he assessed me and he just for some reason asked me, why, or how do you find position 5 of stomach or something? And so I showed him how I did it. And he said, oh, can you do that again? So I did it again. And he was writing, didn't say a word. And then that was on the Saturday. On the Monday we had class again and he presented it to the class as a major breakthrough in kinesiology. And I was like surprised. And he said, oh, he rang up and told people about it in Europe and it was being taught in Europe that weekend. And I'm like, oh, wow. And I thought, because I had some other ideas, and I thought, well, you think that's good? I've got this idea about the corpus callosum muscle test and a can opener on it, which is an AP technique. And so I actually started writing them down. And so I gave them to Charles, and you know, he liked it. And then I sort of got some colleagues to come over, and I showed them, and I had like a chakra hologram and a brain hologram back then. That's all I had. And which were the first things I did, and people liked it. And then Charles told me I should go, that in next year, this was getting towards the middle of 1998, and I'd only been graduated 6 months, and he said, listen, next year's the general meeting, March 99 in Tucson, where Richard Utt is, and he said, you need to go and present this. And by then, sometime in 1998, Alfred Schatz had rang me because Charles had told Alfred about me, and he was interested, and so we agreed to. He went to this general meeting. So I went there and presented the brain hologram and chakra hologram, and people who had the institutes in Europe were there, like from Bern and from Brussels, and Alfred in Kirtsaten, and they all said, come over. So I started coming over, and people kept coming to the courses, and so I kept coming up with new ideas, kept doing it, and people kept coming, and you know, everyone was getting good results with it, and next thing you know, I'd written over 20 courses, and so that's how it happened. It was like nothing I set out to do. Like when I began kinesiology, I had no idea that I would become a developer of a whole system of kinesiology. It's just what happened, and you know, I'm still doing it.
Yeah. So what scientists and theories did inspire you?
What scientific theories?
Yeah, I mean...
What theories?
If scientists, if not, I don't know, what inspired you?
Well, I have a strong influence from India. with my time there, so I'm always like Indian or Vedantic theory, especially when working with chakras and energetic bodies. I always draw heavily on that. I also like to look at physiology as well. You know, I think, you know, in the way I work and the people who work in the area I do, we like to have a good knowledge of physiology, and we like to make sure the students understand it well. And so I think that's important. And also I draw heavily, of course, on the Chinese medicine, and the acupressure system is important in kinesiology. And yeah, and then I've developed some theories of my own as well, you know, about consciousness and things like that.
Okay. So I'll just check if the camera is okay. Yeah, so looking good. Okay, which are the basis of your system, neural system, kinesiology, the basics?
What do you mean?
Yeah, you told you're working with chakras or brain. So
what's the basic principles?
The basic principles.
Well, the basic principle I look at is, well, I have this thing I call the interactive triangle